Hi, Sumita.
So can we start? Okay, so good morning and welcome all to the second day of our webinar on adult learning and education. Today, as you know, we will be focusing on adult learning and education responses to COVID-19 and look into the role of CLCs and non-formal education systems. For this, I would like to invite Dr. Ehsanur Rahman from Dhaka Ehsania Mission, Executive Director, and also he is our ASPBAE Executive Council representative from South Asia sub-region. May I please welcome Dr. Rahman to welcome all the participants.
Thank you. Good morning to all. Possibly I would be joining in the session 2. Do you? Hello. Good morning, Susmita. You want me to join me and join now and welcome all participants?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good morning, all participants, panelists, resource persons, ASPBAE colleagues. On behalf of ASPBAE family, it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar series. Today we are having the second webinar. As you heard that, okay, today we are going to focus on the adult learning and education responses. Is how ALE responds to the COVID-19 and what are the roles of community learning center and non-formal education in building responsive and resilient education program. There is a very, very important area to discuss, and I hope the participants through these two presentation sessions would be able to share their perception, because it's not just a webinar one-way presentation. The way this is arranged is that it is going to be interactive, so that you can share your responses, your questions through Q&A as well as in the chat box. There would be open discussions, sessions, guided session discussions. There are few keywords in the whole theme of the session today. We are passing through a pandemic situation due to COVID-19, and we live with that, and we don't know how long this unfortunate coexistence will continue. In addition to that, you know, in the Asia Pacific region, we are facing a couple of natural disasters along with this COVID pandemic. So the resilience, community resilience is very, very important, as well as the response from the government, as well as response from the civil society organizations are instrumentally important. They are placing role. That is one aspect. And the whole webinar focus is going to be how really this adult learning and education can contribute there. Adult learning education, we all know, has been always playing very, very vital role, but unfortunately this often become a forgotten agenda on which ASPBAE always flagging up the issue, and this is another item, another time that ASPBAE is flagging up this, even in this pandemic, how really ALE role can be. The other keyword here in the whole title is the Community Learning Center, for which this Asia Pacific region is proud of as a strong tool or a strategy for community empowerment as well as promoting education. So the CLC experience from this region will be quite helpful, and our experience shows that CLC played quite important role even in community sensitizing on their initiatives for pandemic. And definitely the other very important aspect is the non-formal education, through which the government as well as the non-government organizations, civil society initiatives are there to reach the unreached, which cannot, the out of school or out of education people cannot be reached. So here, having this as the key words, we would have presentations in two sessions. First session, it would be how really the civil society responses can be made more visible, and we would be hearing the experience from India, Vietnam, and Philippines. In the second session, there would be focus on the government efforts and initiatives, how really government, state initiatives, initiative can be there and can be supportive too. There will be listening the experience from Vietnam and Thailand. So with this brief about the sessions, we welcome you all and over to Susmita to continue with the next part of the session one. Over, Susmita.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rahman, and it was great hearing from you. With your introduction, we are almost in the first session. We have entered the first session almost. But before we get into the main session, may I request my colleague Medha to recap yesterday's learnings. Over to you, Medha.
Yes, thank you, Sushmita, and good morning, good afternoon to all of you who are here. I will be sharing with you a very brief recap of our very fruitful discussions that took place yesterday. And I would like to do that not by me talking so much, but I would like to share about a 4.5 minute video or a slideshow that captures some of the main points that were made by the speakers yesterday. So I will share my screen. I would suggest that you turn on the sound a little bit because we're going to start with some music. So let me see if I can now get the presentation going. I think I need access to share my screen. So if the host could please give me access to that.
Medha, you have the access.
Do you have the access?
You have the access as panelist.
Now I have it. Now
you are a panelist, so you can share.
Right. Okay. So let's see here. So can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Medha.
Okay, I'm starting the show. If you can't hear the sound, please let me know.
Cannot hear the sound. I don't know if the sound is already there.
Can anybody hear the sound?
No
Not
sound,
me.
Medha.
Okay. I don't know why that's happening. Let me just check.
In case the sound doesn't come up, you can also think of singing.
I will spare you all the agony of that. But let me see. Maybe if I play it from here, it might work. Okay, let's see. Still no music?
No.
Medha, you may have to enable system sound, play system sound.
Okay. Wait, let me get
Medha, why don't we hear your voice? Why don't you sing as the background music?
Really? Are you sure you want to do that in the morning? I wouldn't recommend it. Okay. Subrat, you have a copy, right, of my presentation?
Yes, we have.
Okay. So maybe I'm just trying to figure out this system sound. Maybe I stop sharing. Same as system, right?
Now.
Okay, thank you, Subrat, for playing that. That basically captures what was spoken about yesterday. So I hope it gives you a sense of how the day went. So that's it from me. I think, Sushmita, it's over to you.
Thank you, Medha, and what a lovely presentation, the lovely way to recap. I'm still in that music
Susmita,
mood.
we can't hear you
Thank you.
so well.
Okay.
Can you get closer to your, yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear me now, Bernie? Is it clearer?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm saying, Medha, thank you very much. It was a lovely recap, and I'm still in that tune, that music.
I hope we can set the tone for the day where we're feeling joyful as we are now. So
Yes, joyful, non-formal learning.
yes. Thank you.
Very good.
Sushmita. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Medha. So from here, we will get into the next part. Yesterday, we tried to introduce all our participants, but we have, it's great to see that we have a lot of participants today also. And what we will be doing to introduce ourselves is that it's difficult to open your microphone and camera and then introduce, and it may take the first whole day to do that. So the easiest way that we found is that if you can use the chat box and answer only two questions. One is from which country you are, and the second question that you have to answer is, apart from colleges, schools, universities, ECCD centers, which is that one place from where you learned the most? Not only colleges, universities, schools, or ECCD centers, but what is that place from where you have learned the most, other than these places, other than these formal places, which is that one place from where you have learned the most? If you can use the chat box and everyone writes only your country and answered this question. And we are expecting some very interesting responses. Yes, I think few more. Okay. Mhm. Other than schools, colleges? Okay. Okay, I think we have everybody written. Okay, you can keep writing, and of course, we can keep reading over them. So while you keep writing, we found we have really participants from almost all over Asia Pacific, and we have from Central Asia, from South Asia, of course, Southeast Asia. I couldn't see anyone till now from East Asia, but of course they must be joining a little later. We also have from do we have anyone from Pacific? Till now, no. Maybe they will be joining other than Bernie, if I consider him also from the Pacific.
Sandy Morrison.
Sure.
Yes.
Sandy, okay, I may have missed the, yeah, there is Sandy.
And I think we have colleagues from Japan, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
From the participants list.
Okay.
So good number, Smita.
Yes, of course. Yeah, that's great to see. And also we have Timothy with Sandy together. So thank you very much. And we got some very interesting responses on the question that apart from school, colleges, universities, which is that one place, or which are the number of places from where you have learned the most? And we have responses like communities, NGOs, from powerful teachers, family, society, internet, of course. How can we not talk about internet? Even conferences. I liked how Enam has written family adda. Adda means like family gathering and chatting together. I think we learned a lot from there as well. Interacting with colleagues, communities came many times. And of course, even from dorms, school dorms, one of my colleagues has written, he has learned a lot from the school dorms as well. So from Tajikistan, we see it's from community. Yeah, of course. So Sandy has put it in the Q&A, and she writes that we have learned from the churches, from the Maori community, their wisdom. Yeah, of course, those are some of the great learning places. So it's great to see that we have, we really learn a lot from places other than our formal places like school, colleges, and universities. And I think these places which from where we learn non-formally gives us a lot of learning for our life, for ourselves. Like Midori, she writes, she has learned a lot from her grandmother, which is like another great place to learn from our elders. So from here, what we will be doing is that we get into the next session and the theme of today, which is on non-formal education and how we cope with COVID-19 through the non-formal education and our CLC mechanism. For this, may I please request my colleague Sunil, the youth coordinator of ASPBAE, to take over this session. Over to you, Sunil.
Thank you, Susmita. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining this important session today. As we all know, the year 2020 will be remembered especially for the pandemic. This is a year where tiny virus has shaken the entire world. More importantly, as we were talking yesterday, it has exposed the precarious and unjust conditions of our systems. Of course, the pandemic has affected everyone, but it has hit the marginalized section badly. Millions of workers, farmers, women, and children were exposed to extreme forms of health risk, discrimination, stress, and stigmatization. Unfortunately, even in new normal situations, voices of these people have been either unheard or ignored by the government and the larger system. However, there were a group of organizations and committed people who worked tirelessly and still working to stand and support the people during this unprecedented health emergency. They're working on various issues, various fields, from relief work to medical support, from awareness to education to policy level advocacy. They have been playing multiple roles. And importantly, they did this massive work, or they are doing this massive work silently by making people feel dignified, hopeful, and empowered. And hence, it is critical to listen, reflect, discuss their stories, their experiences, their insights from the field. In these sections, we are going to learn, listen from our three partners, their experiences in their three presentations. Each of this presentation will be bringing different aspects to our deliberation. The first presentation will be exploring digital issues, awareness with women. And for this, we have Ms. Nishi Khandelwal with us. Ms. Nishi is team leader at Nirantar organizations who are continuously working in the grassroots level and working to empower marginalized women in the digital spaces. In the second presentations, we'll be listening to Ms. Kiman, who is National Coordinator at Vietnam Association for Education for All in Vietnam, and Ms. Nya, who is Manager Teacher of Central Deep Services. They'll be talking both on disabilities and their inclusion in the early processes. And finally, we'll be listening to Ms. May Cinco, who is National Coordinator at ENET Philippines, and Ms. Prudence Senoy, who works with EDUCO. They'll be talking on ALE's connection with senior citizens. They'll be sharing their insights and presentations. As a format of the presentation, we'll be listening to each of these presenters for 10 minutes. Final presentation, because it is shared by two organizations, will be giving them 15 minutes. And after the three presentations, I'll be opening the question and answer floor for all of us. I request you to jot down your questions in the question and answer box, and I'll be taking few of them in our deliberation. Because we are all working continuously on the Zoom platform, we know the formal structures and design of this platform. I request us to keep us unmute during the presentation and raise your digital hands when you want to ask the questions. Keep writing your insights, comments in the question and answer box. I also request presenters to please keep the time. I'll be requesting them to wrap up their presentation in the last 1 minute when they are remaining with 1 minute. For this, without losing more time, I request Ms. Nishi Khandelwal to present her presentation. Ms. Nishi.
Thank you. I shared my presentation, so I hope you have my presentation. Can you please share this screen?
Yes, Ms. Nishi, we'll be putting your screen.
Yeah. So Firstly, I would like to thank ASPBAE for giving us an opportunity to share our program and the work we did with the community during the COVID period. Next slide. In my presentation, I would share the Applied Digital Literacy Program, which Nirantar piloted before the COVID period. But this program was helpful in working with women in community, especially with through the young girls and women during the COVID period. So. When we started this program, the objective of the program was to enable women to enable women to become a active member in the digital world, and in which they are not only gaining the information but also participate in knowledge formation, and they do not become the passive consumers of the digital means and mediums. So with this, when we started this program, the major objectives were first, creating enabling environments for adult and young women to become empowered digital citizens. Demystify digital for women by integrating literacy and digital, because digital is something that women can, the kind of notions are that women cannot learn. They do not, they cannot be equipped with technology. So with these notions, we were trying to demystify that that yes, women can learn and use technology in their day-to-day life. Then envisage digital literacy to be a catalyst of livelihood. Of course, whatever they are learning, they can use these digital techniques in improving their livelihood conditions. And then develop and strengthen leadership skills, which is informed by gender and empowerment perspective. So this is the core, I would say, that objective, that whatever they are learning, they should learn that or build a perspective where they can see or analyze things in situations around them from gender aware lens. Next slide, please. So to achieve this objective, the curriculum and pedagogy we used was that we included basic literacy and numeracy skills along with digital literacy skills. Since we were working with dairy farmers, so dairy cooperative skills also we used, and ultimately to build leadership skills among the women and young girls. We use audiovisual aids as part of PLM, which was prepared by women as well as the Nirantar team based on their needs and experiences. Then real life exposure was part of pedagogy to build confidence and use of technology. So as you are seeing in the picture given here.
Сейчас поменял перешел на телефон.
I can. So Sunil, can you?
That is the Russian interpretation.
Yeah.
Okay, Miss Nishi, you can start now.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Subrat, you are
I'm
in
sorry.
English.
Yeah.
Can we start now?
Subrat, nobody could hear me on my laptop, so Sushmita asked me to switch to my phone, and if it is possible, if you appoint me.
Yes, I can do that again. Yeah, sure.
Nobody could hear.
Shall I continue now?
Please continue, Nishi. I will set it up. Yeah.
Thank you, Subrat.
So, yeah. So as you can see in this picture that teacher is using ATM machine. So we use this as a pedagogical, as a strategy, that whatever digital tools we are using in our program, real life exposure should be given to learners and teachers, so that that they become confident in using them. And of course, when they use these technical things, they also take control of finances in their hand. And then technical skills and knowledge with perspective. Of course, that is not without perspective. So whatever, if they are using mobile phone, they are using ATM machine, then they should also understand when why women are limited to not use, or why their access is limited to these things. Next slide, please. So when we implemented this program, by end of the program, the impact of applied digital literacy was that teachers and women bought basic mobile phones, and this also showed that knowledge leads to access. Then when they started using these mobile phones, they were
Smita, can
accessing
you hear
knowledge,
me?
as well as they were accessing rights of other entitlements also.
Trying to
Then women started using digital
trying
skills to
to
strengthen their
get
livelihood
my
work, as I mentioned earlier. Then
microphone.
negotiated mobility, access, and control over their devices, as well as finances. Teachers and learners could connect and continue literacy activities
Can
during the lockdown period. And this was very important to mention then, that when
so I'm
everything
trying
was
to
locked
can you
down,
hear
they
me
were
now?
limited
I'm
to.
trying to speak louder. Uh,
Khurshid, because of mobile
I can
phone,
hear myself.
the
I don't know
channel,
why.
unfortunately, you are on Russian. Maybe please use your laptop, Khurshid.
Uh,
Because the
so
phone you are unable to move to Russian channel. Please try that again in the with the laptop. Maybe restart the laptop and you can start that. Meanwhile, maybe Nishi, if you want to continue.
Yeah. So, as I was mentioning that since teachers and learners became digitally literate, they could use their skills during the lockdown period when they were limited to their homes only. So, during this period, we could continue the literacy activities, as well as we provided relief to the community members. Uh, and learners were sharing their experiences regarding burden of work, violence, impact of on livelihood, their children's education through their letters. And since in the program they also learned how to make videos and audio, do audio recording, they also shared their experiences through recordings as well. And then we also created online forums to build teachers capacities, and teachers could participate on these forums just because they learned all these skills during the program. Next slide, please. These are some of the experiences and quotes from the learners. So one of the learners, like 32, she's Saraswati, who is 32-year-old. She lives in Persanda village. She shared that I do my own calculations before going to the bank now. So I can see whether the right amount have been credited to my account, and whether these amounts have been recorded accurately in my passbook. So this kind of empowerment they felt after going through this applied digital literacy program. Another learner, who is Neelam from Salipur, she shared that my son does job in Lucknow. I used to call him for his well-being. I learned doing WhatsApp video call at the literacy center. Thereafter, when I did video call to talk to him, he felt very happy. Now he asked me to go to the center regularly. So this is the motivation also the learners family members are getting when they see their mother, their sisters doing uh, handling these digital tools perfectly, and they could see that okay, now they are self confident, they are confident, and they are independent in doing work outside the home, especially in the banks, and especially handling finances properly. Next slide, please. In this slide, I'm going to talk about the relief work we did during the COVID-19 period. And this work was done by the young girls and the women who were part of our literacy programs. And they could do, as I mentioned earlier, also, they could do this work only because they were equipped in, they were digitally literate and equipped in handling digital tools, especially the mobile phones. And filling up the using internet and filling up the forms and applications online. So firstly, we use digital medium by this digital medium was used by frontline workers and women in the field when mobility is limited because of the pandemic, especially during the first few phases of the lockdown. Through a coalition and network of 7 organizations, we reached out to the people from most marginalized communities in 13 districts of 3 states. Um, then we reached out over 1,60,000 plus families through online as well as offline platforms between March and August, and connecting with women and girls in the field through calls, WhatsApp group, and video calls. These girls also mapped in their community that who is most needy families and the members, so that relief can be provided to them as soon as possible. And all of this work was done through their mobile phones only. Next slide. Next, please. Yeah. So they also mapped of the families in need through learners and coordinating relief work on ground. They shared information on schemes and previous one, please. Yeah. They also shared information on schemes and government relief efforts through messages. They filled ration card forms and financial aid forms, created and circulated podcast on presentations to be taken care of for COVID-19, Corona facts and myths. These podcasts were made in Hindi, Bundeli, and Avdi, so they circulated it in their groups. And then sharing platforms for teachers and learners, the sharing of audio-visual learning materials with the learners, and means for learners to share their letters and videos. So all of this work was done during the COVID-19 period with the help in partnership with our grassroots organization. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for keeping the time and presenting a comprehensive overview of your work during this pandemic time. The interesting things about your work I found was about also to claim these spaces of virtual world uh, and push for the feminist pedagogy in the application processes as well. With the modern time and tools, it is very important to keep ourselves upgraded and challenge the physical societal barriers, which are also digital barriers, intergenerational barriers, and gender barriers. Thank you for presenting those insights. We'll be happy to listen more in a question and answer part. Moving to the second presentation, I invite Ms. Kiman and Ms. Nya for presenting their experiences with individuals with disabilities and early practices. Over to you.
Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. Myself and Ms. Nga from Central Deaf Service, who is one of our members working with deaf students. We are going to speak about our response to COVID pandemic. But maybe I would like to switch off my video because I have to speak on my phone. So I think I need to speak closer to the phone. Okay. Yeah. So in Vietnam, the national lockdown is only in early April, but we have our New Year holidays in January. And since then, the school closed. We have the school closure. And so it's for January until February, where we really realized the situations with the education institutions that working with marginalized students. First, we received the call for support from one of our members. The name of the center is C5, how they name the non-formal learning center. It is the center established by deaf teachers and parents together. And because of the school closure, the deaf teacher just lost connections with their students. In general, what we hear when the school closed is that people talking about switching to online, and many schools have taken the initiative even before the government required school to switch to online mode. Many schools have switched to online themselves. But we know that it's not possible for all the schools to do that. And when we received the call from deaf teachers of C5, they require us to make contacts with parents of all their students, because they don't know where are the students, how are the students, and will they be able to go online if they will switch to online. Because right after the holiday, like no preparation, everything was shut down. So we make contacts to all the parents, and what we learned is the situation is so diverse. And even if they have the equipment, even if the school and the teachers can prepare everything to go online, it will not be possible to ensure the continuations of learning for these students. Many of the students are stuck at their hometown in the provinces. Some of the parents are stuck in Hanoi, in the capital city, because they still working as grab bikers or the shippers. And they even don't have contacts with their students, so their kids. So that's the situations. And with that, we as a coalition, we have online email consultations with all our members, and we come up with a recommendation sent to the Prime Minister and Minister of Education in February to ask the government to, in addition to online education, they should conduct at least education through televisions, because television are wider coverage in the countries, so will be able to reach out to more marginalized learners. So we sent 2 recommendations in February, and we also support the C5 to try to make connections with their students and their parents. And we also organize we create a virtual space, just like this, a online meeting with 9 deaf education institutions, because among our members we have 5 school, non-formal school, and also 1 college, 1 university that work with deaf students. So we think that it's necessary to bring them all together to share experience, share the resources, because they will all have to prepare the program to go online for some students if they can't. And we also bring in VTV7, which is the National Education Television channel, in that meeting to see if they come in and help with this specific group. Because going online for regular student is already not easy, but for deaf student, it's a whole new issue because they use sign language. And in addition to that, we also conduct a survey with all our members on the impact of school closure to the student, and especially marginalized students. So basically, what are the works that VAFA have done in response to COVID-19 pandemic? And I'd like to invite Ms. Nga. She is the manager of Central Deaf Service, which is a non-formal education center in central Vietnam. She can say specifically about the work of the center to reach out to the children during the lockdown and during school closure. So Nga, please, over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Kiman. Hello, everyone. My name is Nga. So as Kiman introduced me, I'm working as a manager at Central Deaf Services. So we are a center for deaf children and youth, because our student is from like 7 years old to 16 years old. So during the COVID-19 time, we have been trying many ways to reach our students. For the first time, when the kid had to stay at home, so our teachers still can work at the center. So the teachers, they film themselves like teaching the new subject, and then we post it video on YouTube, and then we send the link to parents and ask the parent to show it to their kids, so the kid can watch the new lesson at home, and then we call them individually if they have any question about the new lesson or anything they don't understand, so the teacher can meet one-on-one with them and then explain to them more. But we also have some students, their parents don't have smartphone. So at that point, so we have two ways. One is we repair just some like a packet, so in that for the whole week, so the teacher can repair all the paperwork for the kids. Sometimes it's math, sometimes it's like Vietnamese, and also it's like fun activity. So their parent can come to our center to pick up the paperwork for their kids, or if the parent cannot come, so we mail it to the kids. So that's what we did on the first COVID-19 time. And then when the second time happened, because we are in Da Nang, so the COVID-19 happened 2 times. So for the second time, we all have to stay at home, even teacher or student. So at this point, we cannot make a lesson video. And then so we have to organize like online classes for the kids. So we just try that, I think 3 weeks totally. And because we have a small amount of students, and we have 18 students, but we have 6 teachers, and 5 of them are deaf. So for one online class, we just maximum for like five students with 1 teacher. So from my view, I think it still go well. The teacher can manage the student, and they focus on the teachers when they sign in, and also after that class, when they learn together with other friends. So if they have any questions, so they can just video call with their teacher and ask more, and the teacher can just explain them like individually, not like with other kids. So I think that's what we did for 2 times when the kid had to stay at home. That's all, I think. That's our experience.
Thank you.
Can I come in for the
Yes.
last? Yeah,
Yes.
We just finished a productions of a movie that we plan to use as an advocacy tool, and that can be used for policymakers, or for school, for parents. That one advocate for the right to education of the deaf, and also the issues with female deaf students. And we think that if in case we have to be locked down again because of the pandemic or other reasons, we can still use the movie. And I have seen a trailer of the movie. It's 1 minute, but I'm not sure if Subrat or Jerome have it. So can you play, please? after all the registrations, I hope we'll have chance to introduce the full movie with you all, but that's just the trailer. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Kiman and Mia. Uh, that was powerful trailer, and we look forward for a full movie as well. Um, it's very important to understand and unpack the system, as well as to empower the players in the system. And the way you were explaining the role of teachers, parents, and learners, it was very important uh, when you're guiding them on online platform. You're also empowering the three different levels of players in the process, and that is what the situation is asking us to do. We are also responding, but also learning new ways of engaging with the situation. So thank you for that presentation. With this, we will go to our final presentation. I invite Ms. May and Ms. Prudence Senoy.
Okay. So good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon from the Philippines. Good morning to other colleagues. So again, I am May Cinco of INET Philippines. Could someone please share my screen? I emailed it already. Yeah. So the INET Philippines presentation would be two parts. I will share first this senior city platform that INET has used during the COVID-19. And later, my colleagues, Prudencia Sanoy from Educo Philippines, that's another member of INET, will share about their alternative learning system initiative in Mindanao, in Southern Philippines. So this will be a short presentation. So the Senior City, it's an FB Live program that is our response. So during the pandemic, we make use of the social media to continue ALE advocacy amid COVID-19. So it's the platform is Facebook live streaming. So it is cross-posted to other networks FB page so that it could reach more viewers. So all in our networks, we requested to cross-post it. Why I forgot to cross-post it to ASPBAE. Later, we will do that to ASPBAE Facebook. So it is a once a week program that runs to 1.5 hours in the afternoon, 3 o'clock in the afternoon up to 4:30 in the afternoon. Actually, there are two senior cities every week, no? There are two. But the one senior city is really dedicated to all the diverse issues of the senior city. But this one that is really managed by INET is really focused on ALE. So it's before it is every Friday, now it is every Saturday. And we found it that it's more viewership during Saturday afternoon. So this is the first, I just want to share you what is on the screen is the first episode that is ever show. So in the first episode, it gains around 16,000K or 16,000 views. So that is very much rich, no? Actually, I cannot find anymore the data analytics about, you can also, what is this? You can also track how many men and women are viewing and where are the places. Okay, next slides, please. So this is, we are on the 38th episode this coming Saturday. So among the 38th episode, this is also one of the most viewed episode during the pandemic. It's the stories how the communities pursue their livelihood programs despite the pandemics, and how the adults develop their entrepreneurial skills coping to the crisis and continue to make a living. The most important thing here is how are the practical strategies were discussed on how the food products from the rural farmers were brought to the needy citizens of the cities that is also under lockdown. So it gained 11,000 views. Okay, next. So this is I chose this because this one is dedicated to the women issues during the pandemic. So these are the voices of adult women, both as educators and learners. So how did they cultivate resiliency in the time of crisis? And how do they wanted to be remembered? Ka Prudence, one of the speaker today, is also featured there. So these are the issues of women. So we make poster ahead of the program, and it was posted in the Facebook and also shared to other Facebook, and then live stream it to different FB page during the actual program. Okay, next slides. So what is the context? Yeah, because the government has imposed enhanced community quarantine due to COVID-19, senior citizens are ordered by the government to stay at home. They cannot live at home. But as adults, they still wanted to be productive, active citizens, participate in governance and in decision making in the time of pandemic. So they make use of this platform to air all their sentiments, issues, and demands. So they said learning continues even in the time of crisis. So I think that is my slide already. Last. So yeah, thank you. So that is our slogan in time of pandemic. Education that is safe, appropriate, and equal to everybody, for all. So if you want to more about this program, you can visit our website that is written there. So thank you. That is my short presentation to give more time to Ka Prudence for his sharing about the alternative learning system in Mindanao. Thank you very much, Sunil, and thank you very much, colleagues. Ka Prudence, it's your turn.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. May I request? May I request our host to kindly share the few slides that I sent?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, good afternoon to everyone. I'm not going to make this presentation quite long. This one is an answer to one of the most marginalized and discriminated tribe in southern Philippines, which is Mindanao, particularly in the islands of Tawi-Tawi and Zamboanga City. Why most marginalized? One of the most marginalized and discriminated. Because the Sama Bajau peoples are also IDPs or internally displaced people. They are peace-loving, they live in the sea, and because of socio-political interaction that is happening in Mindanao, they were also displaced. So next slide, please. So the Sama Bajau Education Support Project has two phases. The target participants are really the young children and the adolescent from age 15 to 17 years old, up to 18 to 25 years old, to give them a second chance on literacy, and not only literacy, but to help them find a decent living. And so this has two phases. The main objectives, of course, is to enable these children and young adults access alternative learning system, and of course, access to technical vocational livelihood education. And then after that, we are hoping to give them a better chance of living someday. Next one, please. So I'm just going to give you the milestones. First, in phase one, we are more on the academic sides. And so therefore, we are using the alternative learning system modules issued by the Department of Education. But take note These are the Sama Bajau people. And so what we did is to have translation of the modules written in English and Filipino into the Sinama dialect. So in the last quarter of 2019, there were several meetings or workshops so that the modules can be contextualized. And you can see the curriculum writers and consultant and the contextualization. Next slides. Now, before the COVID-19 pandemic, you will see our learners here. There are 3 community learning centers in Zamboanga City. But take note, they came from different areas in Mindanao where there are what you call displaced Sama Bajau children and families. Kasanyangan, Arena Blanco, and Rio Hondo, where there are actually high concentrations of Sama Bajau children and adults. So here they are doing the face-to-face alternative learning session with their instructional managers. Next slide. And then here comes there was the nationwide lockdown because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so from face to face, they were forced to use blended technology because not everybody among them have mobile phones or television or radios. That's how poor they are. So there are still the use of contextualized modules, and then there are chosen lane leaders who have smartphones, and so they created group chats. They created a group where they can have one leader to text them what is to be studied, and then of course the calls from their instructional managers and lane leaders. Next slide, please. So other than the academic part of the project, we are giving them other lifelong skills and life skills to make learning more meaningful. And so because it is prescribed or mandated by the Department of Education to give them psychosocial support, and we know very well the reason for the psychosocial support. So we injected in our strategies this kind of training. And so you will see from being face to face, following the health protocol, they have now the what you call social or physical distancing. And this happened just last 2 months ago. So this is skills training. Next slide, please. Then together with the life skills, this we are showing you how creative our Sama Bajau learners. They understand what is happening in the world, in the Philippines, in Mindanao, and in their immediate environment. And so these are products of their psychosocial support activities where there are games, where there are art making and role playing. And so this is just one of the samples which I told them actually to have exhibit. Okay, next slide. And then ways forward. Just yesterday, there was a signing of memorandum of agreement with TESDA because the second part or second phase of this project is now gearing towards skills, livelihood skills. And so yesterday we have the memorandum of agreement signing together with TESDA of Region 9, particularly in Zamboanga City. At the same time, this month there will be a ceremony or graduation ceremony ending the 10-month ALS session, and we are preparing them for accreditation and equivalency readiness test to be given by the Department of Education, Zamboanga City Division. However, based from the meeting with TESDA, there is no need for them to pass the accreditation and equivalency test, just enough for them to present certificate of completion, and then they will be accepted in the training to be sponsored by TESDA. Actually, they were given 100 slots for scholarships out of the 292 remaining Sama Bajau learners. 100 of them gradually they will be completed, but the first batch of 100 will be given the chance to learn more skills. And then one significant contribution of the project is the registration of certificate of live birth. In our mapping of learners and household communities, and among these Sama Bajau families, many of them do not know their date and place of birth. So there is a what you call late registration, and now because of this registration, they are formally citizens of the Philippines, particularly in Zamboanga City, and they can now avail the socioeconomic benefits given by the city. So if we are going to expound on this, we are happy to say that we are making a difference on the lives of these 300 children and young adults. And at the same time, one of the support we are giving to them, which will be continued during the next year of support, there is actually a little or minimal amount given to the families of these learners. Why? Because while these children and young adults are attending the learning sessions, we have to compensate their absence, quote and unquote, from their families so that at least they can buy foods uh, and other little amenities to for their families. Then
Hello.
during the psychosocial, we have parenting session too. So more will be shared to you during the open discussion. Thank you very much.
Спасибо вам большое.
Thank you so much, Ms. Prudencia, for making it in time.
Спасибо вам большое.
Okay, now I open the floor for question and answers. Participants can comment, share and ask questions so that we can learn more from these three interventions in the community. You can raise your digital hand and I can ask you to unmute. Okay, we have first question from Mr. Tapan Das. Can we ask to unmute Mr. Tapan? Yes, Mr. Tapan, you can unmute yourself and ask question. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you listening me?
Yes, we can listen to you.
Thank you very much, sir. Well, my question, not my question, actually my discussion on the first presentation. The first presentation was very good and we understand many things from the presentation. And the organization is doing a lot during the COVID. And they're supporting their target audience to survive. And well, the discussion on how all of the programs they are presenting are linked with the government initiative, I mean, central government, because government is doing a lot. How all of these are supporting government policies and initiatives, and again, how government is controlling everything or coordinating everything, and how they are supporting government to coordinate, and how they are disseminating their learnings to other NGOs or other community for uh, the betterment of the people in whole India. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, we can take a couple of questions more and then I'll give it to the panelist. Any more questions? Okay, meanwhile we get more questions. I put this to our panel. So in brief, there are two aspects of the question. First is how these are initiatives and work tied up, supporting, contributing to government's initiatives as first. And second is what are our ways of dissemination of these insights and learning with our colleagues in the civil society spaces. Of course, this kind of learning exchanges is one way, but I assume the question is in specific, are there any other ways planned to disseminate this kind of knowledge? I invite Ms. Nishi to respond first, and then Ms. Kiman and other colleagues.
So, thank you for the question, and I would like to respond the first part first. As I mentioned during my presentation also, that the young girls and women were helping community members to filling the forms or ration forms or whatever the facilities is given by the government, and application is on online. So they were helping the community members to fill those applications and accessing their entitlements from the government. One. Second thing is they were also trying to linking these people, community people, with the government schemes. For example, if ration is distributing in one corner of the city by the government, then they are going there, they are talking to the government people and trying to link their community also, so that they can come to that place and give the relief to other people as well. So in this way they were trying to coordinate with the government functionaries to provide help to other members as well. The second part of your question was that how we are disseminating. So Nirantar is part of different networks, and in these networks we always try to share our learning, our experiences, through which they can understand, and if they also want to start or initiate such kind of initiatives in their areas, we are always ready to help them, that how the strategies can be made for such programs or any plan, like whatever they think that they want to do in the field area. So sharing these experiences in the networks and in the wider community as well. When we are making the reports of our initiatives, we widely circulate these reports in the society organizations to the government also. So we share our experiences and learnings in these ways. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And for us, yes, for us in Vietnam, I see what our members and what my organization has been doing is actually more covering the gaps that the government could not do. And because when the school closures, the government just try to think of encouraging the school to go online. And even when, after we send the recommendations in February, they start education through televisions in March. But anyway, it's following the textbook, the former program, and with the speaking teachers. So when we organized the meeting for 9 deaf school, which includes 5 of our members, and the other school is also include government school for the deaf. And for them, they say they are so happy of the opportunity to discuss about challenges with other school that work for deaf, because they are, how do I say, they are like ignore when the government talking about intervention during school closures. So with that, at the end of April, when we are sitting all together, including the government, talking about preparation for reopening, etc., and the government come up with a plan to develop a instructions and guidelines for what they call online education to ensure learning continuity in case of school closures. And so we right away we come in there with our members and also with even the government school to advocate for expansions of the instructions of the policy. Because if they talk about online, then we know how many groups, how many learners will be left behind, because they need to talk about distance learning, and they need to address other learners' needs as well, learner with special needs. So they need to talk about learning through television, through radio, through mailing, like Nga have mentioned. They even have to mail to their students. So I think what we have done will help us to come in there to intervene, to advocate for the new policies on distance learning, and to ensure that the government will also include marginalized learners, including learners with special needs, learners with disability, learners from ethnic minority area where they also speak a different language, in addition to just sticking to our national language and the formal education program. So that's what I see, how we disseminate, and also what how I view about our work in addition to the government's work.
Thank you. Ms. May, if you want to briefly respond to this, then I'll take another 2 questions.
Yeah, I think Prudence would only answer. There is also a specific question for Prudence if you have read it in the chat box. Well, as to my sharing with regards to the maximization of social media during the pandemic, the interaction of learning there is really also virtual. No, you can the participants could respond or could ask the question through the chat box, and then so the moderator or the speakers during the FB Live program would answer the questions. But then I would like to show you one concrete what is this gain of that program. We have a discussion about financial literacy. It was discussed by a woman resource person who has been into the financial literacy for so long time. After that program, I tell you, there is this meeting of group of women that are interested to pursue about their being financial advisor because of this crisis. So they met, they set a meeting, they formed a group, and then how could they have their skills training, and with the social distancing, they meet. And then they have this group chat, how they could continue exchanging, strategies, learning how to really become financially literate. So there is this also from the social media that is a very, very concrete result of that. Even in the social media, you can still continue platforms of how you will continue learning and what will be the result. That is one thing. And then another one is about the exchange of products. Okay, the exchange of products, it's now coming. So in terms of that program, they established the online selling also of their products. No, Like many of the products that is being sold now are food and also what is this herbal medicine. And so, and we called ourselves plantita and plantito also of the plants that made us. So that is also that is a very concrete result of those kind of even in social media. So that is my sharing, and I think I will give to Ka Prudence the chance also to answer the question. Ka Prudence, thank you, Sunil, and thank you for questioning, and also thank you for leading.
Okay, thank you, May. Let me focus in the two phases of the program. In the academic side, we are lucky that the Department of Education and the TESDA are very supportive to the program. If there is a need for them to issue a DepEd division memoranda, they will do so. And so therefore, once the division memoranda is issued by the Department of Education, Zamboanga City, they will abide by that so-called memorandum or memoranda. Another one is TESDA. TESDA is post secondary or post basic education unit of the government. And to think that they allowed 100 Sama Badjao scholars, then that is already a big achievement for us, for especially for the Sinama Badjao. Now, going to the COVID-19, again, they are lucky that whenever the DepEd is invited to provide or being resource persons and the psychosocial training and the life skills training, then they are always there. Oh, and of course, free. So that is how the government is supporting the project. Now, when it comes to the private sector, can you imagine that we are giving only a small financial support to the learners, but there is one big business, M. Louvillier, who is actually, of course, a MOA will be signed, and they are very much willing to intervene and to help our learners when it comes to the livelihood part. So maybe in the second part of this project, more stakeholders, both from public, from the government, and private sector will be helping our learners, the Sama Bajau children and young adolescents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sunil, can I just one additional learning?
Yeah.
Okay, so this pandemic and on the use of social media, the adults are challenged to be digitally knowledgeable. So we also have that. Yeah, even though they are 65 and years old, they are into digitization of learning. Thank you, Sunil.
Thank you. Okay, with the interest of time, I would take the last question. I see the Mr. Inam's hand there. Inam, can you ask your question very briefly, and then maybe one of the panelists can respond to it? Yes, Inam, you can unmute yourself.
Yeah. Okay. So my question is specific to the VFR. Listening the three presentation, I find that VFR is reaching the most marginalized, one of the most marginalized group, particularly persons with disability. So I'd like to learn more about what are the entry point to interact with government so that the state system respond to the needs of the marginalized. We know that VFI as a national coalition and civil society is doing a lot, but I would like to know more about the mainstreaming of the service. What are the entry point, and is there any progress? Or if there is any challenge, what we should do as a civil society. Thank you.
Thank you. It's very interesting that many of the questions are coming from the government interventions and collaborations, and we are very pleased that our second session will be focused on that aspect. To get the question from Ina, to specifically Ms. Kiman. Do you want to respond to that? Can you respond to that now in very brief?
Okay, yes. I'm not so sure if Inam asked about the entry bar point at the beginning of our advocacy work or specifically for this case, but we've been building the relationship with the government for a while. We've been building the reputations of VAFA's work for a while. So we have built the connections with certain department and certain people in the government. And sometimes we have to use, so the government here, usually we talk about Ministry of Education is who we usually advocate for education policy, but we also use other channels. We need to, in sometimes, for example, we go through the Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister in charge of education and cultures to sometimes create pressures in case we know us and the government's positions are not the same, are very different. Sometimes we go through the National Assembly as well. And in this case of the COVID pandemic, the government also reached out for support from civil society, international organizations as well, because they don't know what to do in this situation. Even when they go to television educations, the way they do it is very, how I say, like scattered. And we have to come, like we call CSOs meeting again and collect ideas and inputs on how best to implement and share it with the government, because the government also doesn't know what to do. And usually what we find, what they right away think of is how to address the formal educations, and that's all they see. Like they always see the majority, and so always the minority will be forgotten, the marginalized, the vulnerable with special needs. They just see the common needs. That's how they see. So we find that they also need support, and they will be a channel to bridge with the government. And also there is the LEG in Vietnam called the Education Sector Group, ESG, is also a platform has been established for a while to enter to work with the government. So I hope I answer Inam's questions, or maybe we can discuss further in the later parts. I know we don't have a lot of time.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I also see this is just an opening platform, and we encourage all of our partners to keep in touch with each other and share their learning exchanges and continue this debate, discussions and deliberations on one-to-one basis as well. At this point, I invite Ms. Helen Dabu, who is Regional Coordinator, Deputy Regional Coordinator of Education Out Loud program at ASPBAE, to synthesize our key learnings and the lessons for our work in the CSO sector in the difficult time like pandemic. Over to you, Ms. Helen.
Many thanks, Sunil. That was a very rich session, all good
Yes.
experiences, and I'm sure a lot of our participants, pick up a lot of input and experience, and they can relate also because a lot of our participants also are doing many forms of adult learning, also advocacy for adult learning. So there's a lot of convergence and synergies there that they have picked up. And so the challenge for me now is to synthesize. I was asked to synthesize the learning approaches for adult learners in difficult circumstances such as the current context we're living in with the pandemic. So it's very challenging. But to help me synthesize this, let me ask Sunil, or Subrat or Lay to flash an image that I have put together to situate what I want to share. Because I've been looking into the social media pages of media organizations in the Philippines. So these are images from the Philippines, from the social media pages of media organizations in the Philippines. And these photos or images were contributed by Filipino netizens, who crowdsource and share their images. And these are powerful images, I think, of how and what learning is right now. And we can see how learning and education are happening in many contexts because classes and learning and education have opened up since last month in the Philippines, and for the public schools it will start next week, but in some schools it already started. No, and apart from formal schools, there are also various non-formal learning modalities that are happening, and these were contributed images by the learners themselves and the Filipino netizens. And these images tell you the challenges also they're facing. No, so. And I've actually collected a lot. There's more of this. There's even, the photo of a child on a treetop with a makeshift tree house built by his grandpa just to get internet connection. No, because they live in the rural areas and internet connection is difficult, but the school require online learning. So, but I chose some images here of a young woman trying to attend her online learning class in between her shift, working in a fast food restaurant. No, so she was in a supply room here and stock room trying to do online learning, and an image of a young man trying to build a hand sanitizer dispenser. No, continuously learning his craft and trying to innovate his craft to respond to the current crisis. And an image here of a homeless adult, a homeless man being allowed by a bookstore in the Philippines not to just read inside the bookstore as long as he wants. No, so and this is a form of non-formal learning also. And the image of a mother, trying to assist her children to study inside their home. So these are the realities. So by way of, what is being requested of me is to, what are the approaches then, no? In this current crisis we're living in, what are the education and learning approaches that we can pick up from the sharing, from the excellent speakers that we had today and also yesterday. I think to respond to that, question of the approaches, we need to situate the response to three areas. First is to being clear about our framework. Second is the process. And the third is the modes of or means of delivery, of the learning for adult learners. In terms of the framework, we've heard this in so many input. Framework is of course affirming education as a human right for all. Affirming that education as a human right is indivisible, meaning education is for children, youth, and adults. So that is very important to affirm and assert as a framework for learning. And of course, governments made commitments in SDGs and SDG 4 that they will leave no one behind. No, in education and development agenda, no one should be left behind, and that is very important when we look into learning approaches for adults. It also affirms lifelong learning, life-wide and lifelong learning. So we will have to learn throughout our lives. No? So those are the important framework to frame the approaches. And then the second part is in terms of the process. In terms of the process, we learned from the experience of our speakers that it has to be inclusive. It has to be participatory and non-discriminatory and anti-discriminatory as well. It has to be learner-centered as well, meaning it has to be real life. It should start where the learners are. What do they need to respond to the challenges of life and work? No, so we heard from India experience teaching women how to use ATM. We heard from Vietnam mobilizing teachers for the deaf to make sure that they are continuously connected with their deaf learners. No. Also translating learning materials into the mother tongue, into the ethnic languages, into the languages of indigenous peoples, from what we've heard from Prudence from the Philippines. So this is emphasizing in terms of the process, we need to make sure that this is learner-centered and this is real life, and starting where and leveling off where the learners are. No? And also coupled with that is full support, no? Full support to teachers and facilitators of learners. It also has to be evidence-based. And I heard this from the previous speakers. We have to map where the learners are, where the learners are, and it has to be the kind and approach that we will have to employ, will have to be context-based, no? Recognizing the social, economic, and political realities the learners are living in, and adapting the approaches accordingly, no? So this was emphasized by our colleague from India, where she emphasized the multiple burdens women bear in the homes and in the communities, no, and designing what can be the empowering approaches for learning for them. No, it has to be holistic and empowering, definitely, and it should motivate and retain the attention of adult learners. No, adult learners also have so many responsibilities, but learning should not stop. But you really have to be creative in capturing their attention and in motivating them, no, in the way the learning should be approached and delivered. Now, in terms of the means of delivery, so much have been shared about online and digital-based approaches, and that will be that reality will persist even beyond and after we go over this pandemic. No, so we have to recognize that one of the major means of delivery right now is online and digital-based means of delivery. No, however, we need to recognize that virtual learning modality is not always possible in so many contexts. And so therefore, the value and the importance of still creating offline and printed modules, modes, and other modalities that is not dependent on online technology is very important. And this was emphasized also by the Vietnam sharing, whereby TV remains a very powerful tool of knowledge delivery and learning delivery, because it has wider coverage. So that was asserted by the Vietnam coalition when they engaged with their government. Radio also is very important as a mode of delivery. This was also something that the Philippine government is looking into, because not all communities have access to TV. And now the reality in the Philippines is that a major TV network has been shut down. No? So many people don't have access. Even if they don't have TV, then there's no channel to watch. No? So radio might be possible also in many rural areas. And at the same time, face-to-face and blended mode of delivery remains very appropriate and context-based. And this face-to-face and blended mode of delivery can be home-based, can be community-based. We've seen this in the presentation of Prudence. I was also monitoring the chat box. Timothy mentioned about the Talanoa community learning approach. No? So these things, this will a very, very important experience to look into, because this face-to-face community-based and blended mode of learning will persist and will continue to be relevant for adult learners. There are some limited school-based or community learning classes happening, but with the current crisis, where we don't know when it will end, and then this will be in various modes of delivery, if at all possible. No, so to end, what are our key asks and recommendations that I picked up from our discussion yesterday, from our discussion this morning? There is a need to support adult learners in developing foundational and functional online and offline skills. There is a need to expand and broaden online, offline learning delivery, covering basic, youth, and adult education. We also need to minimize the mental and physical stress of being in a virtual or online learning spaces. how to do this? We have to make it creative. We have to make it fun and motivating. No? So we've heard this from the Senior City weekly program of ENET Philippines, making the learners relax. And someone, I think May mentioned about, so many people now are turning and learning how to become plant liners, no, and proudly showing their plants and flower arrangements on Facebook. So these are, the various modalities and forms of learning virtually that can be fun also, and that can also help our mental health, no, and our physical health, all of that. No, so these are very important considerations in the current modalities of learning at the moment. There is it's very important to remove barriers to online and virtual learning, because we've heard so many stories of barriers, what prevent learners to access online or virtual learning. These barriers include the cost. It's expensive in so many countries to access internet, no? So it's very costly. Even teachers, so many stories of teachers, they're posting their stories on social media. It's so expensive for them to deliver learning. How much more for our learners, adult learners, no? Slow connectivity is a reality for many of us in the region. And at the same time, teachers are saying also they are not yet equipped, no, to deliver learning virtually. So they're still learning as they go, no? So, and it's costly, they need support. So teachers and facilitators need to be supported. And my last point is that we have to recognize the efforts of CSOs in delivering and responding to the gaps, no, in delivering adult learning. But at the same time, we have to demand the governments to make sure that there is the policy and financing support for adult learning and education. This is important because this is something that needs to be scaled up, and it is the resources of the government that should be scaling this up, and to make sure that the learners are able to access good quality education in whatever modes appropriate for their context, to enable them to pursue multiple pathways to learning or to studies in any situation, whether in crisis, in a pandemic, or in normal times, and that this will enable them to respond to the challenges of life and work, making them resilient, making them compassionate, ensuring they are productive, and recognizing their role as active citizens able to contribute to societal development. Thank you very much, Sunil. I hope I covered that in 10 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. It was wonderful synthesis. Well, friends, I think with the pandemic, the online world has opened to us. But yes, we also remember that the online world also reproduces the existing social structures online. So we have to keep at it and create create the democratic spaces and make it available to the more and more people. Thank you for the enriching discussion. Thank you all the presenters, participants, and Ms. Helen. With this, I give it back to my colleague, Susmita.
Hi, Sunil. Okay, thank you, Sunil. So we will get into the next session, which is on government's efforts in mobilizing the CLC and NFE sector during the pandemic. May I request Dr. Ehsanur Rahman to moderate the session, please?
Thank you, Susmita. Many thanks, Helen, for wonderful sum up of the earlier session. Good afternoon, friends from all over the world, over the region. Welcome to this second session. After very rich discussion in the first session about the functions, the responses, activities that is happening at the ground level by different CSOs, it could create a good base for moving to the next session particularly focusing on the government supports in mobilizing things. And the last point that Helen summarized, I think that help us to get into the next session, how to really scale up this good practices, the examples, what works, and how really that can be made part of the system. One of the questions that came in the earlier discussion. So welcoming you to this session, I would request the friends to continue asking questions, putting your comments and reflection in the chat box. And towards the end of this session, we would have further space for interaction and responding to the questions. I'm seeing there are a couple of questions coming up on the presentations and the reflections coming up, so we can take up those. A very strong statement came in the beginning in the morning session is about life continued during this pandemic, so learning continued. So we need to find a way, and we got through this 5 speakers presentation from 5 different community-based organizations, how really these challenges have been faced. Now this session will focus on how really the government counterpart can help us in mobilizing this community initiative through CLCs, through non-formal education program, and also through adult learning program to continue these activities as well as to scale up those as part of the national system, to mobilize more communities to address this pandemic situation, to continue lifelong learning, to engage other non-state actors to the process, so that at the end, adult learning and education, this learning continued. In this session, we have 2 presentations, one from CMO Cell, Southeast Asia Ministry of Education organization. We know very famous and professional intergovernmental organization, which are having different centers, and one of the center is located in Vietnam, which for promoting lifelong learning. So this is a center closely works as the regional center with ASPBAE as well as international this DBB, the Adult Learning, globally promoting Adult Learning International Association for Adult Learning, which can bring the global experience. So as the South and Southeast Asia Regional Center, we can hear from the experience of CMO how these initiatives can be taken up by the governments. And the second presentation will be from Thailand, Office of Non-Formal and Informal Education of the Ministry of Education of the Government of Thailand, which is also very rich experience, containing rich experience of offering non-formal and informal education through a government system, also engaging the community initiatives. So let's start with this presentation. The presentation rules as well as session planning goes as the previous one. Thanks, Sunil, for making life easier for this session. It will be limited to the presentation will be limited to 10 to 15 minutes. And while the presentation continues, you are encouraged to put your questions or reflections in the question and answer session, question Q&A or the chat box. And after the presentation, you'd have a discussion answer open forum for 10 minutes, and that would be followed by more interactive discussion. That would be facilitated by Barney. So I would, with those brief introduction, again welcoming you to this second session. I'd be requesting for the first presentation from the CMO cell located at Vietnam, Mr. Khau Thu Po. I'm sorry if the pronunciation is not correct. He is the Research and Training Manager of CMO Cell. Over to Mr. Pop.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Firstly, I would just like to make sure that everybody can hear you. So you can hear me?
Yes, yeah, we hear you very clearly.
Thank you very much. Then can you please run the slide, the PowerPoint slides for me, or would you like me to share the slide? Okay, thank you very much. So COVID-19, yes, thank you. COVID-19 has been raging for nearly 10 months now and still show no sign of decline. And it has caused much damage in terms of economy, health, social cohesion, and education. So on the one hand, much has been talked about how the disease has caused disruption in education, how it impacted education. And on the other hand, little has been discussed about how education can be a tool in fighting the disease. So there is one COVID-19, there's one issue here, but we are looking at it from one angle, and we seems to forget the other angle, what we should do to increase the strength of education, to make it resilient and to fight the disease. So in this presentation today, I'm going to share with you how ALE, adult learning and education, can be a fighting tool against COVID-19 and use Vietnam as case in point. Next, please. So on the night of March the 7th, the media gave news of the first case of coronavirus infection in Vietnam. And in this time of the internet, news spread at lightning speed. And within few hours, it is like the waves at sea. The news reached all corners of Vietnam, and people soon rushed to shops and supermarkets and began to stockpile on everything, instant noodles, rice, and even toilet paper. So you can see, if you can look at the photograph on the top right corner, you can see empty shelves in the supermarket. And however, the next day, things returned to near normal, except that the streets were quieter with fewer people moving around. So, had there been any misinformation here, and the next day, had there been some correction on the media that it was not actually a case of coronavirus infection, actually it was a case of infection. But then, next slide, please. Yeah. So then, what miracle has helped restore the normal life in Vietnam? I think there are three major factors. Number one, the effective use of the media. Number two, the government resolution to keep the virus at bay. And number three, people's trust in the government. So that night, TV news presented information about the disease, calming people with facts about it, so that people could learn and understand that the disease was not as terrible as they had thought, as long as they knew how to protect themselves. In this case, I think that the government has done a wonderful job of adult education. TV programs show the Deputy Prime Minister chairing a meeting. During this meeting, he expressed the government resolution to fight the epidemic. He quoted the Prime Minister saying that we must fight the disease as we have fought an enemy before. So the implication is that this would be an all-out war with the utmost resolution to defeat the enemy. And the Deputy Prime Minister also ordered the Ministry of Health to set up a web page immediately, giving information on how the disease can be transmitted, how people can prevent infection, and how the government at all levels has prepared for this scenario. And he also made it clear that the government and the media would be transparent in all matters. Transparent in all matters. They wouldn't keep anything secret. They wouldn't hide anything from the public. So this reassures the trust in people of people in the government. And he advised that panic would not solve the problem, and that people should react knowledgeably. And that's why the situation returned to near normal later on. And could you please, next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. So in this fight against the coronavirus and in many other national emergencies, I think that adults play a decisive role. Why? Because number one, adults account for the majority of the population. According to the World Bank in 2019, adults aged 16 to 65 years old accounted for over 65% of the population, the world population. And in Vietnam, Statistica gave the figure at more over 69%. So we can see that the majority of the population is adults. So they are kind of driving force in all social processes. Reason number two, why adults play a decisive role in social processes. They have experience. They are not just older and bigger children. They have experience which they have accumulated over the years of their life, and they have the skills that children don't have. They have knowledge that comes from education, from living in society, in community, and interacting with other people. And so they are more mature. They are the ones who guide and lead younger people, especially in case of emergency. So next slide, please. So naturally, this disease trigger a turn towards an informal education through the media and the internet in Vietnam. If you by the media, I mean newspapers, radio, TV, poster, leaflets, whichever can help deliver news and information to the majority of the public in a timely manner. So if you look at the photograph at the top right corner, you can see poster along the street. And so motorbike riders, when they pass by and waiting at the traffic lights, they can grasp a quick, concise lesson on how to stay away from the disease. All these activities, I think, belong to the category of informal education. And I think that when discussion is raised about adult learning and education, people normally think about non-formal education. But I believe that non-informal education also plays a very, very important role here. Next slide, please. So I think that when talk about education disruption, most has been focused on general education for children and young people. And L appears to be a forgotten segment of education in Vietnam, in the case of Vietnam. Next slide, please. Lachido actually argues that L should, in fact, be understood as an inherent element of every national emergency strategy, both in terms of prior preparation for possible future emergency and in terms of reaction to a given emergency such as the current COVID-19 pandemic. And what is L? Just a very quick look at the L. Next slide, please. So UNESCO define L, adult learning and education is the core component of lifelong learning. It comprises all forms of education learning that aims to ensure that all adults participate in their societies and world of work. It denotes the entire body of learning processes, formal, non-formal, and informal, whereby those regarded as adults by the society in which they live develop and enrich their capabilities for living and working, both in their own interests and those for their communities, organizations, and societies. So we can see that there are four elements to L here. Number one, all forms of education, formal, non-formal, informal. For whom? For adults. But who are adults? It depends on the society where they live. And for what purpose? To develop and enrich their ability for living and for working as well, and for their own interests. Next slide, please. So in light of this, we see that ALE has a very significant roles in the education system of any country, and especially in emergency. But ALE cannot ALE cannot be I'm thinking of a word that I would like to use. I mean, ALE cannot use this strength if it is not inside a resilient system. So what is resilience? The United Nations defines resilience is the ability of the system, community, or society exposed to hazard to resist, absorb, accommodate to, and recover from the effects of a hazard in a timely and efficient manner. Well, so roughly put, next slide, please. Roughly put, resilience can be positioned as the counterforce of disruption. There are two opposing forces. So in terms of education disruption, we have to build and develop education so that we can have a resilient system. Then by resilient system, education system, I mean two things here. Number one, the system itself must keep going, developing, and ensure access to education for all people with interest. So the system itself is resilient. Number two, the system must produce learners who are resilient in case of emergency to manage disaster and to reduce risks. So for the first aspect, such a system will require good planning for emergency, so that when emergency does take place, does happen, then it can remain, can stay and help people learn. And for the second aspect of a resilient system, I believe that there must be programs that prepare people for emergency, for risks, for disaster. Next slide, please. So now we would like to move on to CFC in Vietnam, a major institution of ALE in Vietnam. And I think in many other Southeast Asian countries is this the CLC, Community Learning Center. In Vietnam, in 2018, there were over 11,000 CLC, and they exist in more than 98% of all the wards and villages of Vietnam. So in this case, with such an extensive coverage, CLC can reach out to all local people where they are situated. CLC are tasked with the following, next slide, please.
May I request you to wrap up the presentation?
So CLC are tasked with the following responsibility, and you can have a look through quickly, and we can see that one duty of the CLC, one responsibility of the CLC is to raise, point number two, raise people awareness of environmental protection and knowledge of healthcare. So in this case, we can see that CLC have a very heavy duty in this COVID-19 disaster. The next slide, please. In Vietnam, then what have CLC in Vietnam done? Because of the social distancing, most of the activities have been put on hold. However, COC have managed to broadcast guidance about hygiene practice to avoid coronavirus. How did they broadcast that? They use a loudspeaker in the local area, especially in rural areas. And they also print posters showing how to wash hands properly. They also distribute leaflets at marketplaces, as you can see in the second photograph on the slide. Could you please move on to the next slide, please? So the pandemic has led to social distancing, job loss, mental stress, health problem. These are the challenges caused by COVID-19. And of course, everybody suffer. All sectors in the country suffer, and COC are no exception. No in-person classes were allowed. And to cope with this education disruption, the Ministry of Education and Training encouraged schools to switch to online classes. But this also poses another difficult challenge to COC, because COCs are actually operate on a very, very limited budget. And usually they are just rooms with bookshelves. Sometimes the rooms are just the rented room of the local government building. And even if there were media production means of media production, computers, internet connection, etc., then there will still be challenges to the teachers, because the teachers were not trained to deliver lesson online. They don't have the techniques, they don't have the skill. So we can see that the COVID-19 has posed a lot of difficulty, challenges to all people, and especially to COC. And the few things that COC have managed to do is in cooperation with the local government. So from the discussion of the challenges and the situation in Vietnam, would like to make this recommendation. Can you please move on to the next slide? So there are five recommendations here. Number one is to promote adult learning literacy program. Why? In fact, in Vietnam, the literacy rate is very high already. And according to the framework for building a learning society in Vietnam, this year, it will be 98% of people are literate. And next year, it will be 98% of people will be literate. Adults will be literate. And so there are the few people who are illiterate. Usually they are from the countryside and the remote areas, but still we cannot exclude them. We cannot count them out. So education should be inclusive for everybody. So number one, literacy for those people. Number two, once the first target is achieved, then COC need to train the local people to use communication devices like smartphone, tablets, etc., so that they can access the internet, access the lessons online, and learn by themselves. Learning is not just, today we understand that learning is not just going to classes and listen to the teachers, but it is from our own need, and we can decide what to learn and find out ways, sources of information, of knowledge to learn. So we need to help people to teach them how to use communication devices for their own learning. And number three, included in the content, in the programs content, there should be lessons on disaster management, risk reduction. And number four, COC should be better position the education system with a government agency in charge, so that adequate budgets will be allocated to them for their activities. So in Vietnam, for example, in Vietnam, COC belongs to the education system, belongs to the continuing education segment. But in Vietnam, when we talk about continuing education, most attention is on continuing education center, rather than continuing community learning center. So my point is that CUC should have a better position in the system. And finally, a culture of learning should be cultivated so that people will find that CUCs are good places where they should come and learn. So with that, I finish my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pope. Very rich presentation covering couple of aspects. We'll be back to the discussion in the open forum. It would be helpful. The recommendations will lead us to draw some conclusion. May I now request the presentation from Thailand, Ms. Punramol Santrit,
Yes.
Foreign Relations Officer of Office of Non-Formal and Informal Education, which many of us are familiar that non-formal education is spread, covering both formal education, non-formal education, and informal education are combined, and CLC functions as a rich outlet of those which are government managed, and we can see the combination of government management as well as community engagement there. So over to Madam Purnam.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
clear. Thank you. Please
Okay,
go
a very good afternoon to you all. Let me introduce ourselves first. Miss Rung Arun Omat. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, foreign project consultant, and together with me, Miss Pandramon Sotharit, foreign relations officer, practitioner level. We both work for the Office of the Non-Formal and Informal Education. So let's start our presentation. First of all, I would like to give you a very brief background of our organization. The Office of the Non-Formal and Informal Education, or called in short as ONI, attached to the Office of the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education, Thailand. ONI is the main organization that offers educational opportunities, especially to the out-of-school people who have missed and lack formal schooling system. Moreover, ONI provides the basic non-formal education program for disadvantaged people who have difficulties in accessing to the formal education system, such as street children, inmates, workforce, the disabled, conscripts, the needy, the elderly, farmers, hill tribes, remote rural people, Thai Muslim in the deep south, slum dweller, general publics, etc. Apart from ONI's target groups, 7,424 sub-district non-formal and informal education centers, or SNIEC, or we call as the CLC, as a hub for lifelong learning across the country, play a key role as a learning activity providing units for the non-formal and informal education activities and promoting lifelong learning among the general public and creating a learning society. In this respect, the CLC facilitators or teachers at the head are the principal mechanism for managing and moving the center toward its goals with the cooperation and collaboration of all sectors in the community. Regarding the pandemic, Ministry of Education through the Office of Non-Formal and Informal Education as the main organization provides and supports educational opportunities for people at all ages in order to help them adjust and prepare themselves for the new learning methods during the COVID-19 crisis and beyond. Consequently, the three new learning methods were determined as follows. The first one is on-air learning, the second one is online learning, and the last one is the on-site learning. So the more details about those methods will be shown in our video presentation. So please, the host, can you just play our presentation? Thank you. Please enjoy.
ด้วยสถานการณ์ที่มีการแพร่ระบาดของโรคติดเชื้อไวรัสโคโรนา 2019 หรือโควิด -19 ทำให้ประเทศต่างๆรวมถึงประเทศไทยได้รับผลกระทบทั้งการดำเนินธุรกิจทุกประเภทรวมถึงอุตสาหกรรมบริการตลอดจนการดำเนินชีวิตประจำวันของคนในสังคมอย่างหลีกเลี่ยงไม่ได้ขณะเดียวกันสถานการณ์ดังกล่าวยังส่งผลกระทบต่อระบบการจัดกระบวนการเรียนรู้ในประเทศไทยสถานศึกษาและแหล่งการเรียนรู้ต่างๆถูกปิดห้ามใช้อาคารสถานที่เพื่อจัดการเรียนการสอนการสอบฝึกอบรมหรือการทำกิจกรรมต่างๆเพื่อลดช่องทางการแพร่ระบาดของเชื้อไวรัสตามมาตรการที่ทางรัฐบาลกำหนดรวมทั้งการกำหนดให้มีการเว้นระยะห่างทางสังคม Social Distancing ซึ่งปัจจัยต่างๆเหล่านี้ส่งผลให้เกิดช่องว่างของโอกาสทางการเรียนรู้ของประชาชนในทุกช่วงวัยดังนั้นความท้าทายในครั้งนี้ไม่ใช่เพียงการแก้ไขปัญหาเฉพาะหน้าในสถานการณ์โควิด -19 เท่านั้นแต่เป็นความท้าทายในการเปลี่ยนวิกฤตให้เป็นโอกาสในการพัฒนาคุณภาพการเรียนรู้ด้วยทั้งการเตรียมพร้อมในการจัดการเรียนรู้รูปแบบใหม่ที่เปลี่ยนแปลงไปโดยการนำสื่อและเครื่องมือต่างๆที่ทันสมัยมาใช้ในการจัดการเรียนการสอนสามารถถ่ายทอดให้ผู้เรียนได้มีความรู้ความเข้าใจและเข้าถึงได้ง่ายขึ้นให้กระบวนการเรียนรู้สามารถเกิดขึ้นได้ทุกที่ทุกเวลาซึ่งเป็นการเพิ่มโอกาสทางการเรียนรู้ของประชาชนเป็นนวัตกรรมทางการศึกษาที่เปลี่ยนแปลงวิธีการเรียนรู้แบบเดิมเป็นการเรียนรู้บนฐานเทคโนโลยีซึ่งจะครอบคลุมวิธีการเรียนรู้ที่หลากหลายรูปแบบกระทรวงศึกษาธิการโดยสำนักงานกศน.ในฐานะหน่วยงานที่จัดส่งเสริมและสนับสนุนการจัดการเรียนรู้ให้กับประชาชนทุกช่วงวัยได้มีการปรับตัวและเตรียมความพร้อมด้านต่างๆเพื่อรับมือกับแนวทางการจัดการเรียนรู้แบบใหม่อย่างทันท่วงทีพร้อมรับกับสถานการณ์ในช่วงวิกฤตและหลังพ้นวิกฤตโควิด -19 รวมทั้งความไม่แน่นอนที่อาจเกิดขึ้นได้ในอนาคตโดยสำนักงานกศน.ได้กำหนดให้มีการจัดการศึกษาและการจัดการเรียนรู้ใน3รูปแบบได้แก่ On Air Learning การเรียนการสอนผ่านทางช่องดิจิทัลทีวีโดยครูต้นแบบที่ได้รับการคัดเลือกที่ออกอากาศทั้งในระบบดาวเทียมเคเบิลทีวีและระบบดิจิทัลโดยออกอากาศในรายวิชาบังคับตามหลักสูตรการศึกษานอกระบบระดับการศึกษาขั้นพื้นฐานทั้งในระดับประถมศึกษามัธยมศึกษาตอนต้นและมัธยมศึกษาตอนปลายรวมทั้งรายวิชาการศึกษาต่อเนื่องด้านอาชีพออนไลน์เลิร์นนิ่งผู้เรียนสามารถรับชมผ่านคอมพิวเตอร์และแอปพลิเคชันกศน.ออนไลน์บนมือถือทุกระบบสามารถเรียนได้ทุกที่ทุกเวลาโดยมีเนื้อหาทั้งการศึกษาเรียนรู้รายวิชาตามหลักสูตรการศึกษานอกระบบระดับการศึกษาขั้นพื้นฐานหลักสูตรการศึกษาต่อเนื่องหลักสูตรระยะสั้นที่เชื่อมโยงการเรียนรู้อาชีพที่ได้รับการคัดสรรจากหน่วยงานของกศน.และภาคีเครือข่ายทั่วประเทศมีครูทำหน้าที่เป็นผู้ดูแลระบบออกแบบเนื้อหาการจัดกิจกรรมและการประเมินผลร่วมกับวิทยากรให้เหมาะสมกับรูปแบบการเรียนออนไลน์รวมทั้งจัดทำหรือจัดหาคลิปวิดีโอสื่อเกี่ยวกับหลักสูตรที่จะดำเนินการสอนและให้ผู้เรียนล็อกอินเข้ามาเรียนรู้ผ่านแพลตฟอร์มที่กำหนดไว้ On-site Learning เป็นการจัดการศึกษาในพื้นที่ปลอดภัยเรียนรู้โดยการพบกลุ่มที่สถานศึกษาหรือพื้นที่ที่ปลอดภัยภายใต้มาตรการป้องกันการแพร่ระบาดของเชื้อไวรัสโควิด -19 นอกจากนี้ยังมีการเตรียมการและการฝึกฝนทักษะของบุคลากรที่เกี่ยวข้องทั้งการพัฒนาทักษะด้านเทคโนโลยีการสื่อสารการถ่ายทอดและการเป็นผู้ให้คำปรึกษาที่ดีรวมทั้งความกระตือรือร้นในการบริหารจัดการปัจจัยที่เกี่ยวข้องกับการจัดการเรียนรู้และประเมินผลที่เหมาะสมกับสถานการณ์ให้ได้มากที่สุดเพื่อปฏิบัติหน้าที่ส่งเสริมกระบวนการเรียนรู้ที่มีประสิทธิภาพให้แก่ผู้เรียนโดยก้าวข้ามข้อจำกัดเรื่องสถานที่และอุปสรรคต่างๆได้ในที่สุดแม้ว่าเรายังคาดการไม่ได้ว่าสถานการณ์วิกฤตในครั้งนี้จะอยู่กับเราไปอีกนานเท่าไหร่เมื่อมองอีกแง่หนึ่งสถานการณ์นี้ถือเป็นโอกาสอันดีที่จะมองถึงการปฏิรูปการเรียนรู้ในระยะยาวเพื่อตอบโจทย์พฤติกรรมของคนในฐานวิถีชีวิตใหม่หรือ New Normal ให้สามารถเข้าถึงการเรียนรู้และพัฒนาตัวเองได้ง่ายขึ้นในทุกที่ทุกเวลาช่วยลดช่องว่างและความเหลื่อมล้ำการเข้าถึงการเรียนรู้ ของคนในทุกเพศทุกวัยพัฒนารูปแบบการจัดองค์ความรู้ต่างๆรวมทั้งบทบาทของนักการศึกษาและศาสตร์ด้านการสอนที่เปลี่ยนแปลงไปเพื่อเตรียมความพร้อมสำหรับการเรียนรู้ทั้งในระหว่างช่วงที่เกิดวิกฤตและหลังจากผ่านพ้นวิกฤตในครั้งนี้และการรับมือกับสถานการณ์ต่างๆที่จะเกิดขึ้นในอนาคตนี่คือวาระสำคัญที่ทุกภาคส่วนต้องจับมือเดินหน้าฝ่าวิกฤตที่ท้าทายนี้เพื่อรวมสร้างวิถีใหม่ในการสร้างโอกาสการเรียนรู้ให้กับประชาชนอย่างเสมอภาคและเท่าเทียมกัน
Yeah, thank you very much. That is all our presentation for today. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kundamo. Few strong messages came from the video as well as from your intro remarks that the learners from any age, any gender can need to access from anywhere, anytime. So that is what the lifelong learning, spirit of lifelong learning is there. And in the earlier presentation, it came how really the system can absorb, how system can be resilient. And here also you talked about the presentation, talked about the quality check, talked about the diversity in the learning methods, virtually entering into the new way of learning in both presentations. It came via the government system promote those. Now the floor is going to open for few reflections, dear participants, friends, colleagues from across. You can ask question in the QA. Also, you can share your reflection in the chat. While you are writing, may I request? There are two pending response push chat in the earlier session, where one question, one observation was that. According to that, I read it. According to the teacher's opinion, in Tajikistan, home-based education during lockdown showed less effectiveness. So, request you reflection from anybody can reflect on that. So that is one very important. When we are talking about diversity, the effectiveness part is important. In the video from Thailand, it says the readiness preparation for the new normal situation is equally important because we need to get into the scenario where the learners need to face challenges. So floor is open and please share your reflection in the chat box. Or if you have any question to any of the speaker, please feel free. In the earlier session also from Sandeep, there was one question. I'm not sure whether that was addressed, but it says that okay, participants are coping with the COVID-19 issues of conflict and also citizenship issues. Does the learning curriculum address any of those multiple crises and how? So this also can be one area which can be addressed. One question came that what accounts for the success of Thai in L and CLC apart from the political will? The question for the Thai presenter, Mr. Purnamo, would you like to respond to that? The account of success in the chat box that came that okay, what account for the success of Thai in L?
Cooperation. So for the questions from Rene Raya, right? What
Yes.
account for the success of Thai in ALE and CLC apart from political will? So actually, we get the strong cooperation from all sections in the society. And we work, like we work for a long time, and we like have the strong connection to work together in the community. Yes.
Okay,
Any
thank you.
questions?
Okay, let's see whether any. So the message from your end that comes up is the community, besides this political will of the government, is the important, and is that how really it reaches to the people. And in earlier the Vietnam presentation also it seemed that the trust on the people is very important. So that because the adults are the decision makers, so they need to be given space, they need to be adequately prepared to make decisions. That's all opportunities that can be created through this adult learning program. Any other anybody would like to respond on this reflection on how home-based education are effective, or because there are mixed scenarios in different contexts. If you like, you can also raise your hand. If no question comes to the panelists, thank you both panelists for their rich presentation, and we will move to the is there?
Yes, San, there is a
Yes.
question for the Vietnam speaker on the chat box.
I'm trying to figure out.
So,
Yes, there is a question from Helen for the speaker. What are the financing plan of the Vietnam government in sustaining the CLCs, especially emerges the greater need to access and sustain CLCs in this. So the more financial plan to sustaining the CLCs for Vietnam.
Thank you for the question. And actually, in Vietnam, COCs are not established by the government. By regulation of the establishment and operation of the COCs are established by our institutions, established by the people, for people. So the government will support the establishment of CLC, but for later on, when once the CLC have been in operation, in regular operation, then it should have find ways to sustain itself. So let me give you just a few numbers. When CLC is established, it receives about 20 to 30 million Vietnamese dong. 30 million Vietnamese dong is, well, I'm not good at calculation. I don't know how much it is in USD, but it is not a big amount of money to set up the infrastructure, the room and the furniture and bookshelves, etc. And then every year it is provided with a very limited budget. And actually, people, the personnel of CLCs are not paid by the government. They do two jobs. What do I mean by two jobs here? That you say they are government officials, they are teachers working for schools in the formal education system, and they can come and they can come and teach at CLC. So still they are paid by the school, the original school where they are employed. And so you can see that the budget for CUC is very small, and actually there is no statistic on the budget for the total budget for CUC. But for ALE in general, for continuing education in general, the budget for ALE is less than 3% of the total education national education budget.
Thank
the
you.
budget for ALE.
Yeah, this is a crucial issue when we are talking about resilience. We are talking about grading the CLCs to CEC, education, but it definitely is an issue. For high presenters also, the questions around that is there. So one question is about how the government address the challenge of the digital divide in access to technology or online learning, especially during COVID. And the second question is about on the budget for ONI, how that is maintained and how to increase that in the coming years.
So I just see that we have another two questions. Okay, for the first one, like how has the government addressed the challenge of the digital divide in access to technology online-based learning, especially during the COVID crisis? So we train our teachers about the digital literacy and also the new technology for learning so that they can have knowledge on digital media. So for the second question, has the budget for ONI been maintained or likely to increase in the coming years? Yes, we still get, I think maybe the same as the last year or maybe increase in some way. I'm not sure, but okay, the budget is not decreased for sure. And the last one is, can you explain more on the changes and capacity building being done by ONI with CLC so that they are able to deliver quality adult learning education in the new normal? Changes, capacity building.
We provide equipment.
Okay, just give us a couple of minutes for this question. Or so I think if we cannot give you the answer now, so can we write an email for this question, because I saw it from the Cecilia, right?
Yeah, it's from
Yeah.
and yeah, you can also, since there will be session will be continuing some more time, you can also respond in chat.
I'll write email to you for your
Yes.
answer. I think because we have a lot of information for this question, so thank you.
Okay. Okay, if no more question comes, we can move to the that special session for the interaction open discussions, which would be which will enable us to interact on the issues that came so far. Bernie, would you like to take over on this issue for the next couple of minutes? We spend time and before Bernie take over, let's again thank both Mr. Punnabol and Mr. Paul. Over to Bernie.
Okay, thank you, Ehsan. Hello, everyone. I know we've been here for quite some time now, so this is the last session. For those who don't know me, my name is Bernie Lovegrove. I work for ASPBAE. I'm based in Australia, in Canberra, and I'm the regional coordinator of the Education Out Loud program. And so I'm happy to play this role of allowing us now just to open up to all on the participants and the panelists lists anything else that you would like to comment on. We have a basic question that we've been asked to address, and that is, on the basis of the lessons from the various presentations, what are our recommendations to put forward to government to ensure that non-formal education and community learning centres are included in efforts to build better and resilient education systems? So you can either write these in the chat box, or you can raise your hand if you prefer to do it that way. And there's the guide question is up there for you to think about. So we're trying to move from our experiences to putting them into a frame of what would we want to tell governments after what we've heard about non-formal education and community learning centres, the importance of them, especially in relation to emergencies. What do they need to hear? What would we be wanting them to do? So can I open that? We have a little bit of time, even though we're over our overall, we're a bit behind time, but we can still give this some time. So again, as I say, you can use the chat box and you can use the chat session, or you can raise your hand as well. And I'll try to monitor all of these spots. So far, I can't see any. And if not, I can raise a few questions to sort of prod our thinking on this. So, so one of the things that came up from me in the presentations was, do governments, I mean, clearly it's a bit different in Thailand with the with ONI and the Department of Non-Formal Education, and there's a greater awareness of community learning centres in Vietnam, but in other places it's less the case. So do governments know of the value of community learning centres and the role they play, and non-formal education programs? Is part of our first problem telling government what they actually do and how important they are? So this is an open forum, so feel free to add your responses. Yes, there's a hand from BK Shrestha. Are you there, BK?
Yeah, I'm here, Bernie.
Please go ahead.
Okay. In the Nepali context, we have been raising this voice for a while, particularly when we were talking about this alternative education. But unfortunately, as you said, CLC has not been given that much emphasis. And not really even resources, and not really thinking about, that could be the place for, alternative education for children or adult. There are, like, everybody's feeling in Nepal that, parenting education is must, and parents has to be working as a, facilitating teacher. But at the meantime, that parents are not in that position. And also that has not been well, given any guidelines for CLCs, which can be really a good platform for adults, youth, and children, all these levels. And we have raised this voice, but they have not really come back that, using CLC as in learning place. But government is aware about that one. Thank you.
Did you say that government? Did you say that government is wary about?
Government is aware about these. CLC could be one place where, platform where these, adult education can be run, and for the children also, like alternative education also can be done. They have given, like, CLC is also a place where you can have this alternative education, but there is no any resources, any support from the government. That's why it is not really acting as it's supposed to be. only, from some of the organizations, and also some of the local government is supporting little bit, but not in, not that big. So in fact, I can tell that, CLC is not really well used for this, purpose.
Thank you. Thanks, PK.
Bernie?
Is that May?
Yeah, can I say something?
Sure.
Okay, so this is in the context of what do we want to recommend to our government in the context of Philippines. There are 2 points that we are advocating in terms of adult education and also the community learning center. First is the prior accreditation or the assessment of prior learning, and then accreditation and its equivalency to the level of education in terms of competency and in terms of what would be its equivalent into the formal education. Because these adults have a lots of, experience-based skills, experience-based knowledge. So it has to be embedded in the system of recognition. So that's one advocates that we have, no? So in the context of adult learning, because that is also in the principles of lifelong learning. It's an experience-based learning. It has to be recognized, no? It's not only an education in the formal system, but an experience-based knowledge and experience-based skills, no? So you develop this kind of recognition. So we call it I think it's a universal thing, the assessment and recognition of prior learning of the adults. So that's one. Because can you imagine, for example, 40 years old or a 50 years old village leader, elected village leader who has just a primary education or basic education, but a lot of knowledge in the governance. So it could be recognized as that. So that's one thing in terms of recognition, so that we could also address the issues of really the contribution of these good citizens in terms of servicing. The other one is another for the recognition, the micro certification. If they have a certain experience of, like for example, in leadership, in governing, or in entrepreneurship, or in terms of giving education, community education, just like in the community learning centers, they had been teaching children, they had been, there are many community-based, even our colleagues from Vietnam said that their community learning center is a people-initiated learning center. So that kind of recognition and certification that they have this kind of knowledge and skill that would help really, achieve more of pushing our advocacy on adult learning and lifelong learning. So there should be an equivalent recognition. So that is, I wanted to say to our government, and actually we're doing that. We advocate for that. Thank you, Bernie.
Thanks, May. That's an important point, because we know that when people do receive recognition for their hard learning, they feel better about it if that is recognized, not only through certificates and certification, but also it often opens doors for pathways for other learning. And it also can build the reputation of community learning centers and alternative learning. So can I, since we're on the Philippines, can I ask, I'll just read out, Prudencia has also made a comment in the chat box. She says, the government must increase whatever budget they allot to adult learning and education and community learning centers right now. In the Philippines context, the proposed law for alternative learning systems must be expediently signed by the President of the Philippines. Massive awareness raising by the Department of Education must be conducted so there will be no divide between formal and non-formal education, meaning presumably no loss of status in terms of non-formal education or the alternative learning system. Thank you. There's some further chat comments coming through, but I did see, oh no, there was a hand up. Can I ask BK, can you take your hand down if you're finished there? I can't see any other. There was a hand from Das at one stage, but maybe gone. Oh, tap on Das. You've taken your hand away. All right, in which case we can go to the chat box. Thea Cecilia has said, based on the adult learning and education response of NGOs and government presented here, it is important, firstly, to understand the learning needs of the adult learners as they are impacted by the pandemic, and accordingly develop education programs that will help them survive and address the challenges of the pandemic. And Thea's second point is that it's important to improve the capacities of NGO providers, CLCs and non-formal education, to deliver education through different and blended means by using these different means: on air, online, and safe face-to-face learning. Thanks, Thea. Ehsan has said, usually the disaster management departments and humanitarian actors make plans for community resilience or institutional resilience capacity strengthening. The education departments and organizations need to take technical support from the disaster management teams and experts. Thanks, Ehsan, for that. I see one, two, oh no, okay, a couple more. So I'll keep reading through. Others can feel free to respond to any of the comments as they arise. Well, actually, I see Makiko Kondo has her hand up. Can we go over there first? Makiko? Makiko, are you there? I can't see.
Yes, you need to unmute because the microphone is muted.
Yes, Makiko, can you unmute because we can't hear you? No. Maybe we can come back to you when we see that you are, we can hear you. Okay. So then we go, Punramal from Oni has made a comment. In our opinion, we must have obvious policy to support and promote non-formal and informal education, as well as the budget. Moreover, there should be a specific act, the Promotion of Non-Formal and Informal Education Act. So that's a very interesting point. I wonder how many governments actually do have legislated an act for non-formal and informal education. Thank you for that comment, Punramal. I'll just check. No, nothing has come back from hands. All right. So Mr. Phuc from Vietnam has said, there is an argument among educators in Vietnam. Community learning centres should be self-sufficient and not just rely on the national budget. In fact, some CLCs with good management have cooperated with businesses in the local area and train/retrain workers for them. They earn money for their operation in this way. I have known that Thailand has been doing this too. Well, this is a very interesting point, especially, I suppose, for countries where governments have shown over a long time resistance to provide sufficient budgets for non-formal education and for community learning centres. To what extent should local communities just get on and do what they can do and hope that governments catch up? In an ideal world, it's a combination, presumably, of the local community taking the initiative and taking ownership of the community learning centre and the government coming in to support it. And but yes, I think it's a good question you ask is what degree of self-sufficiency is possible in many countries for community-based learning, community learning centres, without being so dependent on government. I guess the other argument against that is the argument that the government is the duty bearer for the right to education. And that includes adults and youth, especially in remote areas, those that can't access other types of learning. So to that extent, we need to keep reminding governments of their obligation to meet that human right for education, and that needs to translate into budget support at the community learning centre level. Okay, we move on. Punramal has mentioned the 2000 law in Thailand for this regard. That's an excellent point. And it could be one of our recommendations moving forward, where governments don't already have such legislation, to be pushing for an act that obliges them more formally to act on non-formal education and community learning centres. I see, just to avoid some confusing, on the chat box, I passed over my link to Cambodian colleagues at NEP. So if you see my name there, and it's not been done by me, it's because it's from NEP. So one says the Cambodian government issued the lifelong learning last year, but the attention on the NFE seemed very low from government in terms of budget allocation. So maybe that's another thing. It's one thing that moves on very well from the previous comment from Punramal, that it's not just getting legislation in place. The government needs to follow it through with sufficient budget. And that's another area that civil society needs to continue to call governments to account. Thanks for that. No other hands up, so I'll keep going down to the comments. BK from Nepal has said, BK Shrestha said, information from presentations are quite rich. We will run a policy discussion regarding using community learning centres as a platform for non-formal and informal education and alternative education for children, full stop. Government should design and plan for adult learners with budget. Thanks, BK. And that's great that you have been motivated to run such a policy discussion in your context. Tapon Das says, government may take initiative to formalise all CLCs. So, well, that raises an interesting question about formalising community learning centres. It sort of raises the question of, well, what does that mean? To what extent do you want the government involved in formalising CLCs? On the one hand, you want to ensure a high quality of standard in community learning centres, both for teachers and for the curriculum. But on the other hand, you want to ensure that communities have a strong sense of ownership and that the governments don't take over, as it were, control of the local learning. Anyone feel free to comment on any of these points that are being raised. And I'll just yes, is there a voice there?
Fu from
Enam, I see you, I hear you.
So I would just like to add some more ideas about opinion about the funding for programs at CUSC.
Okay, Mr. Falk, thank you.
I can see that, in fact, let's see, I have seen from I have learned from Kominkans in Japan The Kuomintang is kind of CFC in Southeast Asia and the Pacific, but in Japan it is called the Kuomintang. So the CFC in Japan were established by the people who found that they had some learning needs, they share some learning needs, and they would like to. Sorry, the phone just skipped. They had the Kuomintang were found by people who had the same learning needs, and they got together, they came together, and they established groups to study with the help of the government, local government. So I think it is a good way because in that case, they don't need the budget. People with the same interest, they come together and they find a teacher, or actually among them there will be some people with more knowledge in that field. Then that person will volunteer to teach the group at no cost. So in that case, we can see that the Kuomintang can operate on near zero funding. Yeah, and I think it is a good way. So if we think about CFC as a place where people can get together to share what they know about certain subject or topics and learn from each other, then the required budget will normally naturally go down. So I think it is a good way to learn from the Kuomintang.
Thanks, Mr. Falk. Yes, it's a case study that's worth further investigation. Of course, many communities, very disadvantaged or poor communities, may not have the resources of that Japanese group to the same level and would need external support. But it's an important question to keep in mind and not to give up on the degree of local sustainability that's possible. Susmita writes, coordination between ministries is important. Education, health, youth affairs. Yes, because they're, especially in situations like emergencies, there is a need for a great level of coordination. Mr. Falk, you've made your comment there. May I have a word about budget for programs? Is that your point there, Mr. Falk? Yes, thank you. Moving on, Anam, you've got both a comment in the box plus your hand up, so you deserve a comment.
Yeah, thank you. Some country is facing difficulty in continuity of CLC. For example, in Bangladesh, government has a kind of reservation about the terminology when carrying out our education sector planning process. We find it is there are some kind of reluctantness within government. So what could be some important aspects to sell the idea? Because from our experience, we know that CLC is very important, and for last few years, access to internet in the CLCs and access to electronic devices is very critical or important. So what could be new types of CLC, or what are the other synonyms of CLC that we can sell? Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Anam. And it raises another question to me, that there are a range of governments in our region and elsewhere that have the view that community education, including CLCs and non-formal education, that's the domain of NGOs or possibly even private sector, and they focus themselves on formal education. So it's linked to a mindset. It's also linked to a limited understanding of education and the need for a lifelong learning framework. It's so often linked to not recognizing the human rights of adults and youth in communities. So Yes, but reluctance can also be just lack of political will and not wanting to put more budget into this area. Okay, moving along to Prudencia. I'm seeing that the time's creeping away, so I see two more comments that I can read out, but I don't see any further hands up. So maybe we can, unless there's another hand or two, we'll continue on to just wrapping up this session. But Prudencia gives us an old African proverb which says, "It takes a village to educate a child." The child will soon become an adolescent and eventually an adult. Thus, the national government agencies and non-government organizations and other private sector, for example, the business sector, must have common vision and understanding about ALE and CLCs. Thank you for that. And Susmita, there's a comment there in Russian. Do you want to tell us what that Russian comment means?
No, actually, Bernie, I wrote to our Russian colleagues that if they want to write their recommendations in Russian, we can translate it. That's nothing more than that.
Okay, fine. And Sukraraj Mahajan says, in the context of Nepal, most of local government, they do not understand the concept of community learning centres. So the Minister for Education should organise a national seminar in cooperation with the Ministry of Health, Agriculture and Sports. Excellent, excellent idea, and I hope that is possible in your context. All right, I'm looking around, I'm checking the Q&A box, there's nothing there. I can't see any further hands raised. Okay, all right. Well,
One last from Nupur I can see.
Okay, Nupur has come through. Nupur says, it would also be important to integrate ALE into other government programs which are aiming at socio-economic development of the community. For example, in India, National Rural Livelihood Mission aims at improving livelihood opportunities. CLCs must be attached to such programs. Yes, that's so other government programs, rather than just thinking in terms of the education focus of programs. Thanks, Nupur, for that. All right. Without further comments, maybe I can move to just providing a few summary thoughts that I've picked up. And going
there
with
is
this.
One comment came in Russian, so if somebody can translate it, from Masuma, there is a comment written in Russian.
Okay, I can actually read it out. So what Masuma is suggesting that while supporting the concept of lifelong learning, it is very important to recognize non-formal learning and have mechanisms for its recognition.
Yes, absolutely. I think everyone is saying in various ways, saying this same point. Thank you, Masuma.
And one from Nasiba Khan of Tajikistan, also, Bernie.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Maybe they come through at a slower pace for some. Oh, there's Nasiba. Above her. Okay, Nasiba Khan, thank you. The government of Tajikistan adopted a law on adult learning and education and lifelong learning in 2017, but there's no mechanism of monitoring the implementation of NFE. Our recommendation for the government is to include civil society organisations in the process of these programs. Excellent suggestion. So, all right, I think they're the last comments. Good. All right. Well, look, that was a very rich exchange and some excellent points made through the chat box and through comments. So addressing that question of, you know, the recommendations that can be put forward to government, a couple of things come to mind. It does seem that some governments are still not fully appreciative of the role that non-formal education and community learning centres actually provide. And a range of things have been highlighted through these presentations and comments. They include that NFE or community learning centres, they provide knowledge of local people, context, needs, resources, often better than governments do. And they have local networking and rapid capacity for local communication. They're able to pass on fast messages. They have the capacity to reach the most marginalized groups. They have the potential for scaling up of good practice. And they can provide materials in local language. And already there was examples of materials that were kits that were rapidly produced for local people because they weren't able to access online learning. I think that example came from Kim An in Vietnam. And CLCs can provide people with knowledge of their rights, important health information, and the rapid development of leaflets of information. That example was given of passing out leaflets of information, I think was in the Punramol's Oni video, which was excellent. And we, oh yes, non-formal education and community learning centres can provide materials in local language, and they can also communicate what the government messages to local people. That helps with translation, but they can counter misinformation that can sometimes occur if they're not so familiar with understanding what is false factual information and what is not. And community learning centres and non-formal education facilities are important in emergencies because they can facilitate blended responses depending on local contexts, and they're better able to sort of describe what mix of the blended response is most appropriate. Sometimes governments can be prone to having a one-size-fits-all. So they can know the local mix of who has access to smartphones and who has access to the internet and who would need to have other means of contact, like safe face-to-face interactions. And because of this knowledge of local communities, they are well placed to help build resilience and recovery. And I suppose you could say also, I think there's a multiplier effect that comes with community learning centres. I think we saw that in the Oni video, where local people, the trainers, the teachers of community learning centres were taught how to use technologies. They in turn were able to teach local people, and they probably were able to do that a lot faster than any program that could be generated by government outside of community learning or NFE processes. So it's one thing to just, I think, in our recommendations is to ensure that governments understand and appreciate all of these different aspects that non-formal education and community learning centres can provide. And secondly, it's what was raised a few times, that the government needs to recognise its responsibility as the duty bearers of the right to education. And this includes for youth and adults. And this includes recognising non-formal education and community learning centre needs. While there can be a discussion about how sustainable such centres can be with local inputs, in many cases, government resourcing is needed to to provide funds for trainers, facilitators, and for training so that they, to teach those trainers and facilitators to utilize online courses. And also equipment's needed. Smartphones, laptops, internet access at prices that people can afford, especially for the poor, if not free. And so also funding is needed to ensure that non-formal education and community learning centres can actually sit at the table with government. So part of the problem is getting a seat at the table, and some resourcing is sometimes needed to ensure CLC representatives or NFE representatives are at the table. So the governments need to allocate a budget and budget lines that match these needs. And for the most part, governments don't do that. So, and in terms of that responsibility, I think that line of we saw in the discussions, it's great if you can encourage your government, if they don't have it already, to have an act on non-formal education and community learning opportunities like community learning centres. Secondly, don't just stop at the act. You have to ensure that there's a budget allocation to enable this act to take effect. And thirdly, there needs to be monitoring to ensure that that budget is used wisely and that the monies go effectively and are used in CLCs. And then the next step down is to ensure that that training is provided and there is accountability back up and down the line. There was also that message of the value of certification and accreditation that gives opens up the doors for other pathways of learning. Another point could be that with government, another thing we need to continue advocating is for a lifelong learning framework and adult learning and education resourcing. I think it was mentioned a couple of times that there's a need for a culture of learning to be promoted, not only within government and through communities as well. And one other thought that occurs to me is that sometimes in emergencies, community centres get taken over and used as emergency response centres. So it's important to ensure that in emergencies, non-formal education, there are strategies for government to continue non-formal education and the operation of community learning centres and to continue with their functions and not to be the place that takes over housing people or the response centre. So there's just a few thoughts from me. I know there was much more said than I've covered just now, but I hope that that's useful, and I'll hand it over to Maria to wrap up.
Well, thank you, Bernie, and thank you, colleagues. That indeed was a spirited set of discussions, no doubt, because of the very interesting and very rich presentations made that we heard today. Well, colleagues, it was very clear from, well, the world that we live in and our own experience and from the stories that we heard in this call and including in yesterday, that it's the education that went to adults, the education that was offered adults, which has saved a lot of lives during this pandemic. Through health education, through battling fake news about the pandemic, through certainly also through reskilling as people lost a lot of jobs during the downturn. And certainly it's adults, it's parents who took on the burden of responsibility of education when schools closed for their children. So the importance of intergenerational learning and the capacity for intergenerational learning was very much in the forefront, and it fell on the shoulders of the parents of adults, well, especially the women in the family. It's so unfortunate that a recurring message that we're hearing in these conversations is that despite that, the recognition of adult and non-formal education or adult learning and education is very subdued in the discussions related to recovery plans, in the restructuring plans of governments in education. No? When it's so clear again from what I've heard in the discussions today and yesterday, and certainly from what's been told to us by our members, is that there's such a rich tradition within the ALE community to be able to help in building more resilient systems, education systems in the context of an emergency where you can't meet face-to-face or you can do it only sporadically. The tools in relation to non-formal education, in relation to education approaches which can be adaptable in different circumstances is our domain. So there is a lot actually that our sector can offer the broader education sector in terms of building more resilient education systems. But we really have to make a case that it should not only be for children, it should not only be for within the framework of the formal school system, but it has to be within a lifelong learning system, and that the learning needs and conditions of youth and adults should be attended to not only in the immediate, but also in the long term, as we also anticipate that this is going to be an ongoing emergency, and there are other emergencies which compound the impacts of the COVID pandemic as well. I was very impressed with the suggestions that had come out from the discussions around how to strengthen ALE in the areas of policy, of financing, of governance, in relation to the quality of ALE, how could that be improved in relation to monitoring and evaluation, such as we heard from the advocacy of ENAD Philippines around recognition, validation, RVA, and accreditation of higher learning. And these are the areas I think that we should continue our conversation to come up with more robust recommendations in the delivery of ALE, of which CLCs are a dominant form, especially in the Asia-Pacific region. So in that context, I'd like to thank everyone for your contributions into this debate. There's one person, in fact, that I'd like to thank first, and interestingly, sadly, he's not in the call. Kamar Bashir, our member from Pakistan, was the one who actually mooted the idea of having an exchange around CLCs. I think he was sensing that most of the conversation, as we have said, has been around the formal schools, but there's such a rich experience base around CLC. So it was his idea during a members' consultation that prompted us to think through and launch this activity, which I hope you found useful. And then, of course, there's all of you to thank for all of your rich inputs, the speakers, Nishi from Nirantar, Kim An and Nga from the VAEFA and the Association of Deaf, May and Ka Prudence from ENAD Philippines and Educo, Mr. Fok of Simeo-Cell, and I finally get your name right, Mr. Fok. I've had many missteps in that earlier. Punramol of ONI with the support of Rong Arun for, as usual, it's inspiring to hear what the Thai government is doing as far as non-formal education. The excellent facilitation and moderation, Esan, a member of our board whose work around Dhaka Sanya mission has been inspiring to all of us, especially in the experience of CLCs. Susmita, Sunil, Meda, and Bernie, thank you for your very good facilitation skills and new forms as well of presenting recaps, Meda. And Anita, Thea, and Subrat, you've anchored this activity very well. And thank you for your sleepless nights and all your efforts to make this a meaningful exchange among us. Lay Jerome and Khurshid for the translation to assist our participants from Central Asia. So colleagues, all of you, thank you for your participation. Thank you for your attention. And we'll meet again in the next set of activities organized by ASPBAE. Thank you and take care all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.